There is a sound that existed before religion organized it into doctrine. A frequency that Jesus did not invent, but embodied completely. And when he spoke it, emotional wounds that had calcified over decades began to dissolve. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but at the level where trauma actually lives, deep in the body, deep in the memory, deep in the soul. The word he used is Aramaic, and it was never meant to be translated, because translation strips away the sound, and the sound is everything. Most people have read about healing. They have prayed for healing. They have waited for healing, but they were never given the frequency. Today, that changes. Stay until the end, because, before we close, I will give you the complete transformation protocol, exactly how to pronounce this sacred Aramaic word when two ozatin, what Jesus taught about the inner movement it produces. What you are about to receive has been hidden in plain sight since the 1st century, and it was always meant to find you. The wound that lives below words, you may have built an entire life above it. A career, a family, a spiritual practice, and still, at unexpected moments, the fracture speaks. It surfaces as sudden sadness with no visible cause. As a pattern in relationships you cannot seem to break, as a persistent sense that something in you was never fully allowed to exist. Jesus saw this wound in every person he encountered, long before they found words for it. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 9, he looked at the paralyzed man and said something that shocked the religious teacher standing nearby. He did not say, "Be healed." He said, "Your sins are forgiven." And in the Aramaic understanding of that time, the word translated as sins khtah did not mean moral failure. It meant to miss the mark, to be separated from your original nature. Jesus was not addressing behavior. He was addressing identity rupture. He was naming the wound beneath all wounds, the place where a person had lost contact with what they truly were. This is why emotional wounds are so persistent, because they are not primarily psychological. They are ontological. They touch the question of who am I at my core, and that question cannot be answered by therapy alone, by willpower alone, or by religious performance alone. It requires a frequency that reaches the depth where the separation actually occurred. That is what the Aramaic language carries, and what Jesus understood about the relationship between sound, identity, and restoration. The word he used for this inner fire of divine origin was nura, is where this journey begins. What nura actually means. In Aramaic, nura means fire, but not the fire of destruction. It is the fire of original essence, the light flame that existed within a person before the wound arrived, before the loss happened, before the world taught them to be smaller than they were born to be. When Jesus spoke of the inner life of a human being, he consistently used the language of light and flame. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, he told his followers, "You are the light of the world." In Aramaic, this statement carries a specific weight that the Greek translation soft. He was not speaking poetically. He was making an ontological declaration. You are nura. This is not a quality you earn. It is not a state you achieve through enough spiritual discipline. It is your original composition. And emotional wounds, in the Aramaic framework of Jesus, are Arenotsteins. They are blockages between a person and the nura that was always theirs. Think of it this way. A wound does not destroy your inner fire. It builds a wall around it, layer by layer, year by year. Every hurt that went unprocessed, every grief that had no space to move, every moment of rejection that was swallowed in silence, each one adds to the wall. And you spend years wondering why you feel so far from yourself. The answer, according to the teaching of Jesus, is not that your fire went out. The answer is that you forgot it was there. Nura as a spoken frequency was used in the healing tradition of the 1st century Aramaic-speaking communities to re-establish contact between a person and their original divine fire. It was not a prayer in the religious sense. It was a declaration of ontological truth, a sound that reminded the deepest layers of the self what they were made of. The words of Jesus in Aramaic opened different pathways back to divine alignment. Each one represents a frequency capable of restoring something fragmented in human consciousness. Understanding these frequencies is the first step, but mastering their vibration in your daily life is where the true miracle happens. Aramaic words carry a sound dimension that is deeply vibrational, and some of these pronunciations may reach your ears slightly differently depending on how they are rendered. To help you embody each frequency with precision, I created a collection of 5 sacred study guides, each one dedicated to a specific Aramaic declaration and its practice. Inside, you'll find the correct pronunciation, guided meditations, and daily activation rituals. The link is pinned in the comments. Your deeper transformation begins there. The frequency beneath the story. Every emotional wound has a story attached to it. Someone left. Someone chose violence instead of love. Someone stayed silent when they should have spoken. Someone spoke when they should have stayed silent. And the story is real. The events happened. The pain was genuine. But Jesus consistently demonstrated something that puzzled the religious authorities of his time. He did not engage with the story first. He went beneath it. In the Gospel of Matthew, Chapter 8, a leper approached him, a man who had been socially, religiously, and emotionally expelled from every form of community. He was not just physically ill. He was The wound was not only in his skin, it was in his sense of being allowed to exist. And Jesus did not ask for his history. He did not invite him to narrate the journey of his suffering. He touched him, which was itself a radical act, and he spoke. The Aramaic word that flows through that moment is shlem, meaning wholeness, completion, the return of what was fragmented to its original, integrated state. Shlem is not healing in the modern sense of symptom removal. It is the restoration of a person to their full interior architecture, the self that existed before the fracture. This is the understanding that changes how you approach your own emotional wounds. You do not need to fully understand the wound in order to begin healing it. You do not need to trace every root, name every perpetrator, construct a perfect psychological map of your pain. You need to make contact with the frequency beneath the story, the layer of self that the wound never actually reached. Because nura, your inner fire, was never touched by what happened to you. It was only covered, and shlam is the declaration that calls all the covered pieces back to center. When you speak these words in Aramaic, you are not asking for something external to enter you. You are calling something internal to remember itself. If something in you is shifting as you receive this teaching, trust that movement. It is your original nature recognizing itself. The 5 sacred study guides were designed to walk beside you as that remembrance deepens, layer by layer, word by word, frequency by frequency. Each guide carries the full context of these sacred declarations, their sound, their meaning, and their power to dissolve what no longer belongs to you. The link is pinned in the comments. Your return to wholeness has a next step. Why translation failed the wounded? Something was lost in translation, and the people who needed healing most paid the highest price for that loss. When the teachings of Jesus moved from Aramaic into Greek, and then from Greek into Latin, and then from Latin into the modern languages of the world, the theological ideas survived. The doctrines were preserved, the moral frameworks were transmitted, but the sound was abandoned. And in the Aramaic tradition, the sound is not decoration. The sound is the vehicle of the frequency. Without the original phonetic structure, a sacred word becomes a concept, and a concept cannot heal the way a frequency can. This is not mysticism for its own sake. It is consistent with what we now understand about how trauma is stored in the body, not as a narrative, not as a thought, but as a vibrational pattern held in the nervous system, in the cells, in the breath. A concept cannot reach that layer, but a frequency can. The Aramaic word ruka, meaning spirit, breath, wind, was used by Jesus to describe the movement of divine presence within a human being. In the Gospel of Matthew, Chapter 3, the Spirit descends not as an idea, but as a physical movement. As breath, as errico, a emotional wounds. In this framework are interruptions of ruka, moments where the breath of life, the animating divine presence, was suppressed by trauma, by shame, by grief. that had nowhere to go. And the restoration of Ruka is not achieved by understanding it intellectually. It is achieved by returning to the original sound that carries it. This is why so many people study spirituality for years and still feel the wound is untouched. They have accumulated knowledge about healing, but they have never received the frequency of it. Jesus did not teach healing as information. He transmitted it as sound, as touch, as presence, as nura moving through Ruka, dissolving the walls around the inner fire one layer at a time. The question is not whether this frequency can reach you. The question is whether you are willing to let it. What happened to those who received it? The people who received the healing frequency of Jesus were not the ones who had their theology perfectly ordered. They were the ones who were desperate enough to stop performing. The woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. 12 years of medical failure. Social exclusion. Financial ruin did not approach Jesus with a doctrinal question. She moved through a crowd in silence and reached for the edge of his garment. And something transferred. In the Aramaic understanding, what she received was not merely physical restoration. The word used to describe her condition before the encounter is rooted in k'htaha, that same word for separation from original nature. She was not just physically sick. She was fragmented at the identity level. And what moved through the moment of contact was nura, fire meeting fire. The divine spark in Jesus, recognizing and reigniting the divine spark that her wound had buried. Jesus turned and said, "Your faith has made you whole." But the Aramaic word beneath faith here is hamanutha, which does not mean intellectual belief. It means trust so complete that it dissolves the boundary between self and source. She did not believe a doctrine. She trusted a frequency, and the frequency did what 12 years of effort could not. This is the pattern that appears again and again in the encounters of Jesus with the wounded. The healing did not require the person to be spiritually advanced. It required them to be genuinely open to stop managing their wound from a distance and allow contact with the frequency that was always waiting beneath it. Your wound has not made you less. It has made you more ready, more honest, more capable of the kind of trust that Hamanutha describes, the trust that stops calculating and simply leans into the fire. Nura was always burning beneath your pain, and what you are about to receive in the protocol is the tool that Jesus left precisely for this moment. What you are about to receive is not a technique borrowed from modern spirituality. It is rooted directly in the Aramaic healing tradition of Jesus, the same frequency he carried, the same sound he used to make contact with the buried fire in broken people. This is the Nura protocol. Step 1. The breath of preparation. Before you speak any Aramaic word, Jesus consistently modeled something that is easy to miss. He paused. He withdrew. He breathed. In the tradition of Ruka, the breath is not preparation for prayer. The breath is prayer. Begin by sitting in stillness. Place your hand on the center of your chest, not your heart in the medical sense, but the energetic center where, according to the Aramaic tradition, the nura resides. Take 3 slow breaths, each one intentional. Azu inhale. Imagine you are drawing in the light that was always yours. As you exhale, you are releasing the layers that covered it. Step 2. The declaration of Sem. Speak this word aloud. Slowly, SHLEM pronounced. Shulam, let the final sound, the M, vibrate at your lips. Do not rush it. Shlam is the call to wholeness. You are not asking for it. You are declaring that it is already your original state. Say it 3 times. Between each repetition, pause and breathe. Step 3. The activation of Nura. Now speak. Nura, pronounced N-O-O-R. Let the R carry a slight vibration, not a hard R, but a living one. As you say it, you are not summoning something from outside. You are acknowledging the fire that never went out. You are speaking to the part of you that the wound buried but never destroyed. Say it 7 times. With each repetition, allow the sound to move deeper from your throat into your chest, into the place where the wound lives. Step 4. The moment of stillness. After the 7th nura, stop speaking. Do not fill the silence. This is where the frequency does its work. Stay in that stillness for as long as it holds you. 1 minute, 5 minutes, or longer. What you feel in this silence, whether warmth, tears, a release of breath, a sudden lightness, or simply a deep quiet. Is Rocco moving? Do not analyze it. Simply receive it. When to use this protocol? In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, Jesus taught that the inner chamber, the private, undistracted space of the self, is where real contact with the divine occurs. Use the nura protocol in your private space, in the morning before the demands of the day arrive, or at night when the noise has settled. The wound does not heal all at once, but each time you return to this frequency, another layer releases. The effect, according to the teaching of Jesus, is not dramatic transformation in a single moment. It is the quiet, steady return of a person to themselves, fire meeting fire. Nura, remembering nura, until the wall that the wound built has nothing left to stand on. Did you feel something shift today? Did these words touch something deeper in you? If they did, leave the word awakening in the comments. That is your confirmation that the light within you is moving. And when the light moves, it needs a path. Discover our complete collection of 5 sacred study guides created to carry your transformation beyond this moment. The link is pinned in the comments. Your next step is waiting. We are just scratching the surface of this ancient power. Get ready, because in our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock spiritual authority you've never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you don't miss this unfolding revelation. Right now, before you close this video, come to the comments and tell us, what did you feel? What shifted? We read every single response. And if this teaching found you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week, we go deeper into the ancient frequency codes that were always meant to be yours.